Hello everyone, I welcome you all to today's stream. And today, I think the last two topics of web APIs are left. So I think we'll do that. And these topics are basically video and audio APIs and client side storage. I saw like yesterday we saw that they are just short, and we have already done like video audio, so that won't take a lot of time. So basically HTML video and audio. So video, it has a source, and you can add a p tag to add basically accessibility and the features to the uh, video or audio. So this is how it will look. That's the video. And if the video could not be loaded, then this content will be loaded. um, so you can add multiple source tags to give it like different options for the video. And I guess we have to specify controls. You can review with all the HTML features given is this article linked above. For our purpose, the most interesting attribute is controls, which enables the default set of playback controls. If you don't specify this, you get no playback controls. Yeah, so so we can add controls to get these controls, or else we won't get any controls. This is not immediately useful for video playback, but it does have advantage. One big issue with native browser control is that they are different from for each browser. So uh, every browser has implemented its own version of controls, so not very good for cross browser support. Another big issue is that the native controls in most browsers are not very keyboard accessible. Yep, you can solve both of these problems by hiding the native controls and programming your own controls. So most of the like players developers program in their own controls and try to make it like that. So part of HTML spec, the media element, so we can use these APIs to play and pause. And yup, and we can make such features. So it fast forwards by and goes back, stops, play, pause. So um so they are basically going in HTML media element API. We'll go quickly through it. We have seen how to do like manipulate video in previous streams, and I think we'll just go quickly if we find something new. Explore uploading the HTML. So in the HTML they have video and its sources, and we have a div with a button, play, pause, and yep. So not a lot of much. Basically I think they are making this. So yeah, so basically we have done this actually. So I don't think we must go a lot deeper into this. And we know whenever we need that, we always have a reference there. So and it's not something that like these APIs, as I told before, these APIs are something that we must know that they exist, but we don't need to remember these, like unlike the main features about event loop that's coming, like I think after this section, I guess let's move forward. Yep. So we did um s- so where were we? So yeah, we were talking about much more important topics rather than uh, spending a lot of time on these APIs which are more referenceable and do not require us to know, like to know exact learn exact bits of it. So we are just we went like swiftly through it. Now modern web browsers support a number of that's client side storage. So I guess they'll talk about local storage and session storage and uh, with user permission, then retrieve it when it's necessary. This lets persist data for long-term storage, save sites or document for offline users retain. Exactly. Client-side storage as well in MDN learning area. We talked about the difference between static side and dynamic side. The most major modern websites are dynamic. They store data on the server using some kind of database server-side storage. They run server-side code to retrieve needed data, insert it into static page template, and serve the resulting HTML to client to be displayed by the user's browser. Client-side storage works on similar principles, but they have different use. It consists of JavaScript API that allows you to store data on the client, i.e., on the user's machine. Okay, and personal. So basically, we can use this storage for personalizing site preferences, like dark mode, or like in older times. Now the browser itself supports what's the global variable for dark mode, or it can look what your desktop settings are, so what your OS settings are. But earlier, when there wasn't such support for dark and light mode, we used to have we used to store if the user prefers dark and light mode in the local storage itself, because did not matter to us that like we didn't want that to come to the backend and like make our backend weighted on something that's not even necessary for being stored in backend. So the user settings can be stored. Often client side and server side storage are used together. For example, you could download a batch of music files perhaps used by web games or music. Old school cookies. Yeah, so the concept of client side storage has been around for a long time. Since early days, our website sites have used cookies to store information to personalize user experience on websites. They are exactly cookies. Still, a lot of websites use cookies for authentication, and they are quite secure. So um, um, those um, those single page applications made by modern day frameworks like React generally don't prefer to use cookies. But if you're making a full stack application that is made on Node, then you might want to use cookies. Uh, and I don't know the reason actually, but I've seen that being the preference majorly. So yeah. Um, However, yes, data related to user personalization and state example session ID and access token. Yeah, so access token basically. For more information on cookies, see using it. Yeah, I think, and it will be in references. New school web storage and index DB. The easier features are mentioned above as follows. The web storage API. So I know about the web storage API. I don't know about the index DB API. Provides a mechanism for storing and retrieving smaller data item consisting of a name and corresponding value. This is useful when you just need to store simple data like username, uh, whether they are logged in, what color to use for the background of the screen, etc. IndexedDB API provides the browser with complete database system for storing complex data. This can be used for things for from complete sets of customer records to even complex data types like audio and video files. Okay, you can learn about these APIs below. The cache API. The cache API is designed for storing HTTP response to specific requests and is very useful for doing things like storing website asset offline to site can subsequently be used without a network connection. Cache is usually stored in combination with service worker API, although it doesn't have to be. Exactly. The use of cache and service worker is an advanced topic, and we won't be covering it in great detail in this article. Although we will show you example of offline storage section below. Storing simple data with web storage API. Basically, basic syntax. Let's go. Yeah. So I'll just show you this. If I do inspect element and on the console I set this key, so local storage dot get item name, I'm storing name as Chris, so it's done. Now if we let's just console log this, so dot log, and we can retrieve the data Chris. So set item to set the data, get item to get the data. Similarly, there is also a session storage, so remove item also, so for removing the data. So I think they'll mention about session. No, they don't, I guess. Similarly, there's a session storage which will store the data, like local storage will persist for a long time and for infinity actually, and session storage will persist for the current session. So that's how you can use both of these if you according to the data you need. Like if you want to store dark mode, then you probably want to store like for like infinity, but I don't I actually don't use a session storage a lot because, but if you want to store any data for that uh, persists only for the session, then you can use session storage. The data persists. Exactly. There's a separate storage for each domain, each separate web address loaded by the browser. I actually this I when I was building my first website, we had to store some data in the local storage, and I was actually very scared that having we store like any value would affect values for other sites, and it would cause a problem. But later my senior explained me that that wasn't the case. So I learned this from making a mistake, and like a lot of time in development you do tend to make a lot of mistakes and then you learn. So this is a story that I remembered from this topic. uh, Separate storage for each domain. There's a separate data store for each domain, each separate web app. Exactly. A more involved information. Okay, so I guess, and on submit they ask the name, and okay, cool. Huh. Okay, so they are basically storing it and checking if it's there. we can make all this using the API. So, and the only thing that we need to know for this doc is for local and session storage is get item to get the data, set item to set the data, and remove item to remove, and then we can form our own logic. We have learned so much till now that we are in the intermediate section, and till now we must be like clear with how to manipulate data and work with a different other logic. So just walking through it quickly. Index DB I'll do properly because this is something that's new to me too, and I just oh my god, it's actually very long. Sometimes is complete database system available in the browser in which you can store complex related data and the type which aren't limited to simple values like string or number. You can store videos, images, and pretty much anything else on in an IndexedDB instance. The IndexedDB API allows you to create database that creates object stores within the database. Object stores like tables in a relation database. Each object so can contain a number of objects. To learn more about the IndexedDB API, see using IndexedDB. However, this does come with a cost. IndexedDB is much more complex to use and than the web storage API. In this section, we will only really scratch the surface of what's it is capable of, but we will give you enough to get started working through next storage example. Here, okay, map looks something like this. Cool. I don't. I'm slightly confused. Should I actually make this or not? Because it's still an API, so it's very referenceable, and it's not something that should be learned. Like we should know that it exists, but it's something that I personally have never done. let's let's just see what the code. So we are initializing the DB. Um, let's make it. So index start.js. Style.css and index.html. Yep. Let's delete this. Okay. Let db. So we are creating a new instance for db. Just a variable. Okay, they are telling us to have a look. Cool. We are opening a connection with the DB. Open request window.index db.open nodes db, so db name, and I guess version 1 of the database called nodes.db. It doesn't really exist. It will be created by the subsequent code. You will see the request pattern used very familiar, often through IndexedDB. Database operations take time. You don't want to hang the process while you wait for the results. So database operations are asynchronous, meaning that instead of happening immediately, they will happen at some point in the future. You get notified when they are done. To handle the IndexedDB, you create the request object and you call anything like open request here. So cool. We add these event handlers of error success. On error we show the error, on success we console log database open successfully, and db we set db. This handler runs if the database has not already been set up. If the database is open with bigger version number than existing stored database is when. Okay, cool. So one more event handler to check if the database is created and is of same version. We also define the schema here, so it defines the schema itself too. And on submit we add data. It's actually very understandable code, so we define the function add data. So what it prevents default and new item, and it creates a transaction in the database, so it writes in the database, and on success, on complete, and on error basically. And then a function for displaying the data. So we know how to display data. It's actually easier than uh, we thought, and I think deleting a node will go for fast forward to this, because it's something that's an API which is all, it could always be referenceable. It will never be asked. Like no one should ask like if you uh, questions from this, and or you should not actually remember everything from this. uh, it's better to just know that it exists and move on. The above example already shows how to create an app that will store large assets in an index area, avoiding the need to download them more than once. This already is a great improvement on user experience, but there is still one thing missing. The main HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files still need to be downloaded each time the site is accessed, meaning it won't work when there is no network connection. This is where service workers and uh, clear, closely related cache API come in. Thus, a service worker is a JavaScript file that registers against a particular origin website as part of website to create at a certain domain. When it is accessed by a browser, when registered, it can control pages available at the origin. It does this by sitting between loaded pages and network and intercepting network requests aimed at the origin. When it intercepts a request, it can do anything you wish to it. See use cases idea. So service workers are like highly used for developing PWAs, but PWAs itself is an idea that uh, I actually like it a lot. I think PWS solve a lot of problem. It solves cross browser compatibility, and like there are some apps that do not run on iOS. There are some apps that don't run on Android, and then Apple has some of its rules on Play stores and all that. That all could be solved used by PWS, but they aren't very much popular because for it to be popular, like there must be proper uh, advertising, I guess. Plus, like YouTube is a PWA, so uh, if I go on YouTube, hmm, youtube.com. Okay. I thought this was a PWA, but ideally there should be a download link and you could download it. But I don't know why it isn't showing. But YouTube is a PWA. From the last time I checked, it was, but currently it's not showing. So generally there is a download button, and then you can download it, and it works on your desktop, and that is implemented using service workers. So let's look at an example to give you a bit of idea of what this might look like. We have created another version of video store example we saw previous section. We register a service worker. Okay, so I know it feels like I'm skipping a lot of content, but when you really understand why I'm doing because it's as I told, these are things that you should know that they exist, but it's not necessary to learn them, and like uh, that's the reason. And we know that okay. And the other things we know. So I guess uh, JavaScript APIs are done. It's actually a very not that interesting topic. Um, what's in language overview? Okay, why are we coming back to these? I guess they are doing a revision, but and it's good. It's nice to have a revision. We'll do this tomorrow. We'll go like very quickly through this because we are reading it continuously, and like I don't think we need a lot of revision, but yeah. So I think client side web APIs. Intermediate revision. We'll do this tomorrow. We'll go like very quickly. Aren't my AirPods working? Bruh, they aren't even connected. Oof, that's so sad. But I guess my laptop has good sound. Yeah, my laptop has good mic, so uh, I don't like this, but okay. I guess I'm very new to streaming. Yeah, uh, I should not make a lot of excuses. My bad. I'm sorry. Bye bye.